Peace and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. I'm going to title today's segment, A Conversation with a Dummy. Once again, I will title today's segment, A Conversation with a Dummy. Now, when you hear me refer to people as a dummy, it simply means that they are an individual whose eyes has been shut, they're unable to see, their ears has been stopped up, they are unable to hear, and their heart has been made fat. They are unable to understand. They are still in that state of deep sleep that the Most High has cast upon us when He scattered us to the four corners of the earth. So, therefore, when you have conversations with them, they are, first of all, irrational, emotionally unstable, and they lack the ability to reason. And they're very disingenuous. Uh, so, when you're dealing with dummies, you either have to deal with them very delicately or not deal with them at all. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Let me kind of share with you a conversation that I've had here over the last few days with a dummy. So we're discussing different things. This individual identifies himself as one of our people. Uh, We're having this conversation based upon what has transpired with our people over the last few days, as far as us being hunted down in the streets and being killed. This is not news to anyone. This has been happening from the time that we have been scattered to the four corners of the earth. There will be no assurance of our lives. This is no matter where we are on the earth. This is not new. However, what is new is that it's being presented before our faces. We can see it now. We can bear witness to the words of the Most High. That when we go into the words of the Most High and His prophets, we can see clearly now. Okay, what we're seeing before our very face is the manifestation of the Most High's words, and He is proving us that He is indeed who He is, and that His words will stand and none other. So we're going to have to face these things one way or another, and we will have to bear witness to it. You can believe whatever it is you want to believe or not believe it, but when you see it, you're forced to deal with the reality of those events. So I presented a simple question to this man, for he is a quote unquote, he is a Christian, and to me, a Christian is nothing but a white supremacist. And when one of our people tells me that he is a Christian, I see him several ways. I see him as an enemy unto himself first. I see him as an enemy unto me and my people, and I see him as an enemy unto the Most High, His laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. He's an enemy all around, for the simple fact that the house of Israel are not Christians, nor are the people of the Most High Christians. Never have been, never will be. So to identify yourself as such, it tells me you and your enemies are in cahoots. So therefore, I watch them very carefully, for I find them to be extremely dangerous. Uh, so we're discussing some things, and I asked him, I said simply, I said, you have to understand that the Christian nations, you name all of them, England, France, Portugal, Spain, uh, just go down. I mean, go down to all of them. Uh, Holland, all of these nations that have enslaved and murdered our people throughout the generations, all over the earth, not on one place, all over the entire earth. These are all Christian nations. They're either of old Christianity, which is known as Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, or New Christianity, which is just regular Christianity. So when you look at the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, the Pope had actually backed all of our enslavement and our murder and us being shipped all over the earth. So the Roman Catholic Church, if we're going to have some reparations, they owe big. And so does the Christian Church, because it's the Romans and the Christians who are one and the same that has murdered and slaughtered our people all over the earth. So I asked this individual, after I list several of these killers of our people and these murderers of our people, I said, do you realize all of these quote unquote Christian nations have been the very people that have murdered and slaughtered us all over the earth and continue to do it to our very faces today? And he gave me a response that was, I don't want to say shocking, but the average person may be baffled by the response that he gave me. But here's the response that he gave me. He said, well, I hear what you're saying. And, you might believe that. I said, no, this is not something that I believe. This is facts. You can pull up the history of all of these nations, and you will see clearly that these are Roman Catholic nations. These are Christian nations. This is not something I just made up. And we can also look and see clearly where these people have murdered and slaughtered our people, quote unquote, black people all over the earth, have made laws against them and do it to this day. Then he conceded to that when there was no place else for him to go. Then his response was, but those weren't the good Christians, though. Let me repeat that for effect so you understand clearly how the mind of a captive, how the mind of a sellout, how the mind of someone who is in cahoots with his enemies, how the mind of someone who is unwilling to deal with what is before him. This is cowardice. The man said, but those were not the good Christians, though. All right, let's deal with that. If we were just enslaved, murdered and sold and raped, had our substance taken from just the bad Christians, somehow that took place all over the earth. And so now the question has to be asked, if the bad Christians murdered, raped, enslaved us, killed our children, fed them to alligators, and did all of these unjust and unlawful and unrighteous things against our people, my question would be, what were the good Christians doing while the bad Christians were doing all of this? And then you're stuck. Then there's no place to go. What has been done to us could not have been done without the collusion of all parties involved. The acquiescence, not only of them as a collective, but us actually going along with it. This thing would not stand unless they had recruited men who would give a response like he gave me, and that would actually acquiesce to their, not only their demands, but their actual brutal torture of our people. So many of our people, starting off with this pastor and those who say they believe in this mess, these people are enemies unto ours. For because they will take position with their enemies and side with them and make excuses for them and justify their behavior and their flat out refusal to fight in this combat zone. It's because of the collusion of enemies that are within us with our external enemies is why this confusion has been going on for so long. So our people need to be retaught. They need to be taught exactly who they are, who their God is, and they need to be taught of Torah, for they do not know Torah. And this is the truth. And so therefore they have fallen victims to traps and snares, believing the lies of their enemies. It is so bad that when you present the actual facts and the evidence before our people, they will make excuses for their enemies in order to let them off the hook. I think this is some kind of psychological self-defense mechanism, because the minute that you begin to accept the fact that, yes, indeed, I am in the midst of my enemies, indeed, these people have done X, Y, Z to me, and they have used this system of government in order to create the current circumstances that we're in, then I'm forced to deal with it. I'm forced to do something about it. Most of our people are unwilling to act. They are comfortable being last. They don't mind seeing one of their brothers being shot down in the street. They could care less about him. It becomes concerning unto them when it comes towards their house. So no one will be escaping unscathed. You're going to see this. You're going to feel this. You're going to see that you're going to church 3 times a week. And the Most High is going to bring violence and send evil at your house. He's going to have your sons killed, your daughters killed, if not have you killed. So we're going to pay for this thing one way or another. We can play ignorant all we want. And so therefore, this young man that I was speaking with, he chose to play ignorant and try to defend his enemies. And this is a problem that our people have, to where we will see our enemies kill one of us, spit in our face, and we will say something that our enemies are not saying. We're going to step forward and say, well, he didn't mean it. We forgive him and all these other things. And the man will look at you dead in your face and said, I meant exactly what I did. I don't care nothing about your forgiveness. I did it because this is how I feel about you, XYZ. But somehow our people will take that, switch it around, and say, well, he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't really mean it. I'm going to pray for him that he has a change of heart, etc. We are unwilling to deal with the fact that we are in the lands of our enemies. And in times past, we dealt with our enemies simply. We went to war with them. However, we're lacking a warrior class. The men that's leading us are cowards. You have a man that's sitting in the pulpit teaching you all manner of unrighteousness, all manner of wickedness, and you think that he is some kind of leader or spiritual leader of some sort. Has no guts. He's in cahoots with his enemies, and he's leading you astray, and everything that you're being taught is against Torah. These things are going to be made plain as the hardships become before your face, and you endure them. And we as a collective are forced to see exactly what is before us. Many of our people do not know Torah. Many of our people are baffled and confused by the state of affairs that we're in. Channels such as this, men such as myself, we're here to put all of this evidence before you, to show you the errors of your ways, that you may consider your ways and your doings and make it good, that you may turn back. In order for us to have a change of heart, we must first have a change of mind, which means we must first learn something that's absolutely different. We can all agree that the many nations in which we dwell, that the government is corrupt, that the government is anti-us. In other words, it is a wicked system. It is not fair. It's not just. It is not righteous. But yet, many of our people will seek to be a part of an unrighteous government. I've said it before and I will say it again. No righteous man seeks to be a part of anything that is unrighteous. He will simply withdraw his hands from it. Yet our people continue to try to be a part of something that they themselves can see is wicked. And somehow they choose to join in and be a part of wickedness, somehow hoping that things will change, and it will not. So we're at this juncture now where we have to make a decision. A, I'm going to join something that's wicked and continue on this path to my own destruction, or I simply withdraw my hands and I take the time to investigate to see exactly what is different. I'm seeing that this is wickedness. This is not the way to go. Certainly I have to make a 180 and turn around. And that 180 will only be done by those who are of a contrite spirit. And that 180 will take place from those of the house of Israel will do it, and those that are of the nations will also see that this thing is unrighteous and turn around. We are going to have to face this decision, or we're going to continue to be destroyed in the midst of these nations. Many of our people, like I've said before, are unwilling to fight, and they are unwilling to identify exactly who their enemies are for fear of retaliation and everything else. On my end, there is no fear for the simple fact that I keep the law before me, and the Most High stated plainly that no weapon formed against us shall prosper should we walk after his Torah, and he will protect us and he will guide us. For the covenant, for his law is the extension of his mercy. That is the sanctuary that has been extended to us in the midst of these nations. Yet, many of those that are in the Christian church and all these other denominations of idolatry are fearful and afraid every day. They're being killed. They're being incarcerated. They're troubled within their houses, within their minds and within their hearts. Yet they have not considered that they have not turned to Torah. However, these are words of encouragement to our people. You're going 3 times a week, and you're still seeing evil befall you. No, it is not Satan who is sending this evil after you. This is your own God, O Israel, sending this evil after you, for he stated clearly that he would. For we refuse to walk in his law, and we have made a decision to be like other people, to join other people. And these other people know not the Most High. They know not righteousness. So we must now do our job, stand up and teach, and stand in our rightful place and teach this law to the house of Israel, and to teach this law to the people of the nations, that they may know what righteousness is, and that there may be a clear division between the wicked and the righteous, between the blessings and the curses. Many of our people have been so accustomed to being at the bottom, has been so accustomed to being entrapped and ensnared, that being at the bottom somehow now has become a comfort zone. We're used to working hard, we're used to doing more and getting less, and it was never intended to be that way. So in order to change our circumstances, we will have to change direction. There is no way that all of these many Christian nations, Roman Catholics and Christians, who have murdered and enslaved our people throughout the earth, they have never meant us any good, nor will they ever. They have always hated our people. They hate God's people. You can look at the history of them, and there's no way that you are going to try to make peace with a man who is not peaceable. There's no need for you to extend peace to those who have not extended any peace towards you. So in order to find peace, finding peace is not trying to make buddies with our enemies. We will find peace when we turn back to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Then, and only then, will we be granted any form of peace in the midst of these nations. But provided that we continue to be like other people, and join ourselves unto other people, and eat the foods of other people, and worship the idols of other people, and walk in their ways and their customs, and join ourselves unto their sons and their daughters, we will continue to have the problems that we're facing today. We are to separate ourselves from these nations. And if you don't want to, that's fine. The Most High is going to separate us from these people. There will be no choice. And so therefore, you can't possibly be clinging to any of this stuff, Christianity and what otherwise that they have going on in these nations. You cannot possibly cling to it, for the simple fact that the Most High is going to make a separation between his people and everyone else. So if you choose to take a hold of your enemies, like I've said in previous videos, you will be holding on to a butt naked man, because the Most High is going to strip him. And when you do realize that you have been in error, it will be entirely too late. There will be no turning back. So you are to analyze exactly what has transpired in times past and what is happening today. And you have to ask yourself, are these people, based on what they have done and what they continue to do before your face, do you consider these people, these Christians, these Romans, to be the people of God? Are the things that they have done to you, are they godly things? The way that they have treated you in times past and what you're seeing before your face in the many nations where you dwell right now, does any of this correlates? Does any of this go along with God's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, or are they in direct opposition to it? The Christians, the Romans, hate our people. And they taught our people their Christianity, they taught our people their Roman Catholicism. And that's why we hate each other. And that's why we kill each other. Because the man who has been killing us has taught us. And he has given us his same hate for us and rancor, that we are now killing each other and have been doing it for quite some time. Unless this man has willing, we have to be willing to participate. For if we separate ourselves from him, then he has no allies by which to insert in the midst of us that will do his bidding. I've said before, when you decide to deal with white supremacy, the murdering of our people, and the flat out hate of our people, unless you are willing to deal with the bedrock of this, which is the Roman Catholic Church, which later became the Christian different denominations, we will have to deal with that first. That is order number one. And once we remove ourselves from that, everything changes. And then they will really show you exactly how much they hate you. For they will only be in cahoots with you or smile and laugh with you when they feel as though you believe exactly what they have taught you. Because once you decide to do that, they know clearly that you are no enemy unto them. But when you decide to say, you know what, I've analyzed this thing that you've given me, and I realize it is a lie, it is false, it is anti-God, and all of your actions in times past and what you're doing right now is all anti-God. It's unrighteous, and therefore I'm going to withdraw my hands from everything that you do, and I'm going to withdraw my hands from you. Now, when you decide to do that, then all of a sudden the wicked man realizes he has no allies. And when people withdraw their hands from him, then he's now left alone and he's able to be exposed for the world to see. So, to the house of Israel scattered to the four corners of the earth, regardless of the language that you may speak, you are to separate yourselves from your enemies, their ways and their customs, that that man may be standing alone, that when the wrath of the Most High come towards him and his house, and upon him and upon his house, and upon his nation, that you may be spared. For you recognized that the man is unlawful, he is wicked, and walk contrary to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts, and you were smart enough to withdraw your hands and turn back to the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts that we were given at the first. That goes out to the children of Israel, but to those that are of the nations. And there are many of our people on the street corners teaching that, oh, the white man going straight to hell and he can't be saved and all of this other madness. Let me reiterate to you that there will be members of the nations that will turn back with their whole heart and their whole soul to do that which is right in the sight of the Most High. In other words, they will take a hold of Torah and will adhere to law. So to those of you who can clearly see where your people have murdered and slaughtered the children of Israel all over the earth, and you recognize that to be an unrighteous thing, then you are also to withdraw your hands from any unrighteous act, any unrighteous behavior, and you are to turn to righteousness also. For the only way that we can be on one accord is for us to all turn to Torah. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is a truth. Stop making excuses to justify your cowardice and your willingness to stand up against your enemies. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.